What are fair value gaps? Fair value gap is when price pushes aggressively in the market and creates an imbalance, right? Leaving behind unfilled orders, basically, right? And this imbalance right here is gonna have to get filled, right? I'm gonna explain right now. So let's say price does this, right? It creates this other candle, and all this right here is a gap from this week, right? Let's say this candle right here, this wick filled in this little gap, this little imbalance gap right here of this big candle, right? So this big candle right here, that's a whole fair value gap. That's an imbalance in the market. And basically what that means is that price was moving too quick and it left unfilled orders. So basically price is gonna have to come back and fill in that gap. We don't know when price is going to come back and fill in that gap, but we know for sure price will come back and fill in that gap, right? And off of these fair value gaps is where you could actually see high potential probabilities or opportunities in the market to take a trade-off from, right? So right here, boom, this next candle, it fill in this gap. It fill in this much of the candle, of the gap. This next candle, boom, finished filling in the rest of the gap, right? So now we only have this gap up here left on this candle, right up to here, up to this wick. Because you can see like this candle right here, this wick fill in this gap and was not filled in. If the wick prior to the big push, right, fills in, then that counts as like, you know, the candle's getting filled in, the gap is getting filled in. But if the candle before does that, then it doesn't count. You understand? So like right here, this candle filled in, it gave us this little wick, so it filled in the next candle's little gap, right? This candle, if it would have gave us a big wick up here, it would have filled in this. But since it didn't, the next candle did, so it counts. Okay? But whatever's behind the aggressive push candle that created the gap, it doesn't count. It's only counts, the only thing that counts of filling in the gap is what comes after the big push candle, right? So right here we still have a gap on the top candle, and we have price. We're just gonna keep clicking forward and see when price comes in and fills in that gap, right? So, okay, boom. Right here, price is starting to come in and closing that gap, right? Boom. So right here, we have about this much of the gap closed. Boom. Now we only have that little bit, right? So like you knowing that there's a gap, imbalance in this candle, right? And let's say you find an entry showing that price is starting to uptrend. Now you know, okay, price has to come up and fill up this candle, this gap. So now I know that I could put my target somewhere here, because for sure price is gonna have to come up and fill in that gap. But we don't know if it's gonna be today, it could be tomorrow, it could be the next day. But that's a indication that could tell you, okay, price is gonna have to come up here to fill in this gap at some point. So it gives you a little bit of a bias of where price can go, right? And look, afterwards, boom, basically the gap got filled. Most of the gap, it got filled right there, right? There's still a little bit of the gap left. And then bam, basically right here, it got filled all the way, you know? So that's basically a fair value gap. And like I said before, you only want to look what's in front of the gap, not what's behind, because what's behind doesn't count unless it's like a wick. Then the gap will be even, you know, smaller. Like right here, for example, right, there's a little tiny gap. You might not be able to see it too much, but it's a little tiny gap right here on this candle, right? Price came down and created this little gap right here on this candle, right? The wick from before covered, filling this gap, and then the wick after, the candle after, filling this little gap, right? But it still left this little imbalance, right? This little gap on that candle. So you already know price is gonna come back up and fill in that gap, right? Boom, it fill in that gap. So now you know, okay, price fill in that gap and it cleared that imbalance. Now we could potentially see price reversing, right? Because it grabbed that imbalance. So that is what fair value gaps are. I try to keep it simple. It might be a little bit complicated to understand at first, but once you get the fair value gaps and you're able to see them, right? Like right here, there's another fair value gap. Once you're able to see them, you could actually pinpoint where you want your target profit to be at, right? And you could pinpoint where price will most likely come back to, so you could find an opportunity, a trade setup to enter or get out the trade. I don't know what my brightness just went down, but yeah, there's another gap right here, right? And as you've seen priorly, price came back down and filled it up. Boom, with that candle. With this candle right here, it already killed that, and that filled in this, right? And then when the next candle came in, boom, it finished clearing the gap that needed to get filled, the imbalance.